The nation was brimming with tension. America was caught in the eye of a storm, politically divided like never before. The sitting president, Donald Trump, had just announced sweeping federal reforms aimed at strengthening national security and rooting out corruption within governmental agencies. This move was met with cheers from his supporters but fierce opposition from many Democrats and liberal commentators. Among the prominent voices opposing these reforms was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a fierce, articulate, and unyielding advocate for transparency and accountability in government. Crockett was well known for her passionate speeches on corruption and civil liberties, and she had become a vocal critic of the Trump administration's approach to law enforcement reforms. Her growing popularity made her a darling of the left and a frequent guest on news networks, where she often sparred with conservatives. The political landscape was charged with fiery debates, and the stage was set for a showdown when Kash Patel, the newly appointed director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, accepted an invitation to a live primetime televised debate with Jasmine Crockett. Patel was a rising star in conservative circles, a former intelligence officer with a reputation for no-nonsense leadership and a commitment to restoring the FBI's integrity, which he claimed had been compromised in previous years. The debate was scheduled on one of the nation's top cable news channels. Viewers across America anticipated a fiery, perhaps even explosive, exchange between Crockett and Patel. The stakes were high. America wanted answers, clarity, and a vision of its future. And both participants knew that their performances tonight could define their careers. As the cameras rolled and the studio lights blazed, the moderator introduced the two figures, Jasmine Crockett, the champion of liberal ideals, and Kash Patel, the steely new FBI director. The debate began sharply. Crockett opened with a pointed critique. "Mr. Patel, Americans are watching with growing concern as your bureau pushes policies that seem designed not to protect the people, but to silence dissent and target political opponents. What assurances can you give that the FBI under your direction will uphold justice and not become a tool for political repression?" Patel, composed but clearly ready for battle, responded with a calm but firm tone. "Congresswoman, the FBI's mission has never been to silence dissent. It is to uphold the Constitution, defend the rule of law, and protect every American's safety and liberty. Those who threaten our democracy, through corruption or violence, will face consequences, no matter their political affiliation." The debate quickly escalated as Crockett pressed harder, accusing Patel and the Trump administration of using law enforcement as a political weapon, citing controversial arrests and investigations that had left many Americans divided and anxious. Patel leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Ms. Crockett, your accusations suggest that justice is selective. But let me be clear, justice is blind. And if you think the FBI will ignore criminal behavior just because someone wears a certain political hat, then you misunderstand our mission." The tension in the room was palpable. The audience sat on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next verbal volley. Then came the moment nobody expected. The studio fell into a thick silence, pregnant with anticipation, as Kash Patel's gaze locked with Jasmine Crockett's. The debate had reached a fever pitch. Crockett's sharp accusations hung in the air like a challenge. Then, with a controlled voice that carried the weight of experience and conviction, Patel delivered the comeback that stunned everyone watching live. "Congresswoman," he began, "you speak of the FBI as if it's some monolithic force acting without conscience or accountability. But let me remind you, the very agencies you criticize have been the subject of relentless attacks from those who seek to undermine law and order. You claim the Bureau is targeting political opponents? I ask you, who were the ones weaponizing intelligence to meddle in elections, surveil political campaigns, and leak classified information for political gain?" The moderator blinked, sensing the impact of Patel's statement. The audience murmured. Sensing the tide turning, Patel continued, his voice now rising just enough to command attention without losing composure. "The FBI's credibility was shaken not by those who enforced the law, but by the political operatives within and outside the government who abused their power to interfere with the democratic process. I am here to restore the FBI's integrity, not to carry out political vendettas, but to ensure that justice is served equally, no matter the party." Jasmine Crockett's confident facade flickered for a split second. She opened her mouth, ready to retort, but Patel wasn't finished. He leaned closer to the camera, addressing viewers directly as if speaking to every American watching. Congresswoman, your criticisms overlook the facts. Facts that show this administration is committed to rooting out corruption from every corner of government. The recent arrests of high-profile figures, regardless of their political affiliations, demonstrate that no one is above the law. If that makes some uncomfortable, perhaps it's because they've benefited from a system of selective justice for far too long. The audience was visibly shaken. Some nodded in approval. Others looked on with a mix of surprise and admiration. Even the moderator, who had seen many heated debates, acknowledged the force of Patel's argument with a subtle but telling raise of his eyebrows. Crockett, regaining her composure, fired back. Mr. Patel, selective justice is exactly what we are talking about. How do you explain investigations that seem to focus disproportionately on one side while ignoring clear wrongdoing on the other? Patel smiled slightly, a knowing expression. Congresswoman, investigations are based on evidence, not political preference. When the evidence points in a certain direction, it must be followed. That's justice. The only selection here is a commitment to uncovering truth and holding all accountable, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. His words landed like a thunderclap. For a moment, the cameras zoomed in on Crockett's face, a mixture of shock, frustration, and begrudging respect. The crowd in the studio broke into scattered applause, a rare moment of bipartisan appreciation for a politician's pointed clarity. Patel wrapped up his rebuttal with a final jab. If you want the FBI to be an independent, fair institution, start by acknowledging that corruption knows no political party, and stop trying to shield your allies behind political rhetoric. The room buzzed. Viewers at home flooded social media with reactions. Hashtags praising Kash Patel's honesty trended within minutes, and clips of his comeback were shared thousands of times. Even some liberal commentators admitted on air that Patel had made an undeniable point, exposing hypocrisy that many had ignored. The debate continued, but the momentum had shifted irreversibly. Patel's savage comeback wasn't just a win for him personally. It was a rallying cry for all Americans tired of political gamesmanship. The morning after the live debate, the political landscape was nothing short of seismic. Across newsrooms, social media platforms, and congressional halls, Kash Patel's sharp and savage comeback was the hottest topic. For many Americans, especially those weary of partisan bickering, Patel's words had struck a chord. The debate wasn't just a clash of ideologies. It became a defining moment of the era's political discourse. Inside the Fox News studio where the debate had aired, producers were busy compiling highlight reels. Clips of Patel's pointed retort to Jasmine Crockett were racking up millions of views within hours. That was a masterclass in debate, one producer remarked. The audience wanted facts and truth, and Patel gave it to them raw and unfiltered. On the flip side, Jasmine Crockett's camp scrambled to contain the damage. Her communications director released a statement attempting to reframe her stance. Congresswoman Crockett stands firm against political persecution and believes that true justice must be blind to power and privilege. We remain committed to fighting for transparency and protecting civil liberties. But the statement barely dented the wave of criticism from conservative media outlets, who argued that Crockett had been caught off guard and exposed as unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths about corruption within her own ranks. Inside Congress, the reaction was intense. Republican allies of Patel praised the FBI director as a beacon of integrity. Senator Tom Cotton tweeted, "Kash Patel showed America tonight what leadership and courage look like. Time to end political games and get back to real justice." Meanwhile, some Democrats privately expressed frustration that Crockett had underestimated Patel's political savvy and strategic preparation. Even President Donald Trump weighed in during a morning press briefing at the White House. "I told you all Kash Patel is the real deal," Trump said with a confident grin. "We're cleaning house in Washington, and no one is above the law." That debate proved it. Kash knows how to speak the truth and defend America. The momentum boosted Patel's profile nationally. Invitations flooded in for interviews, podcasts, and televised panel discussions. His stock rose as a symbol of a new, no-nonsense approach to law enforcement and government accountability under the Trump administration. But with fame came scrutiny. Critics dug into Patel's past, searching for inconsistencies or weaknesses. A handful of liberal commentators questioned whether Patel's hardline stance masked political motivations. Some also raised concerns about the potential politicization of the FBI under his leadership. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett found herself at a crossroads. The debate had exposed vulnerabilities in her approach to the Trump administration's law enforcement agenda. Her supporters urged her to double down on her criticism, while more pragmatic voices advised a strategic recalibration. In an exclusive interview with a major newspaper, Crockett candidly reflected on the debate. "I didn't expect the level of directness Kash Patel brought to the table," she admitted. "But this isn't just about winning arguments. It's about serving the American people. I'm committed to holding power accountable, but I also need to listen and adapt." The debate's reverberations extended beyond individual careers. It ignited broader conversations nationwide about the FBI's role, political bias, and the urgent need for reform. Town halls and community forums saw heightened attendance as citizens debated the meaning of justice and the future of federal law enforcement. Political strategists began analyzing the long-term impact. Some predicted Patel's performance would cement his role as a key figure in the Trump administration's second-term agenda. Others believed Crockett's resilience and willingness to engage might position her as a leading progressive voice in the upcoming midterms. Behind the scenes, a surprising development emerged: a back-channel dialogue between Patel and Crockett's team. Both sides reportedly expressed interest in finding common ground on key issues such as transparency, accountability, and protecting civil liberties. The debate was no longer just a clash. It was the opening act of a complicated and evolving political drama. Weeks passed since the explosive televised debate, but the ripples it created showed no signs of fading. The nation remained divided, but beneath the surface, something unusual was brewing. An uneasy, unexpected alliance between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett. It began quietly. After the heated exchange on live TV, Patel reached out through back channels, recognizing that the nation's challenges couldn't be solved by political grandstanding alone. A series of confidential meetings between Patel and Crockett's aides was arranged, setting the stage for what many political insiders called the unlikeliest collaboration in Washington. At the heart of the collaboration was a shared concern about rising crime rates, systemic corruption, and the need to reform federal law enforcement in ways that respected both security and civil liberties. Both Patel and Crockett understood that their political philosophies diverged, but they also saw the dangers of continuing on a path defined solely by partisan conflict. In a candid moment at a private meeting, Crockett told Patel, "I may not agree with everything you stand for, but if we want to truly serve the American people, we have to find some common ground." Patel nodded, replying, "Exactly. The FBI can't be a weapon for one side. It has to be trusted by all Americans, regardless of political belief." The political pundits who caught wind of this developing partnership were stunned. Analysts debated whether this alliance could be a genuine shift or just a strategic ploy ahead of the midterm elections. Meanwhile, on the ground, tensions flared. Nationwide protests erupted in multiple cities, driven by activists demanding sweeping reforms in policing and law enforcement transparency. The Trump administration faced mounting pressure to address these demands while maintaining law and order. Kash Patel found himself walking a tightrope. As FBI director, he was responsible for ensuring public safety, but he also had to acknowledge the legitimate grievances raised by protesters. In speeches and interviews, Patel balanced firmness with openness, emphasizing that reforms were necessary, but that disorder and violence could not be tolerated. Jasmine Crockett, energized by the groundswell of activism, ramped up her calls for accountability and transparency. Yet, unlike before, her rhetoric softened slightly to reflect the realities Patel had brought to light. She began advocating for bipartisan legislation to oversee federal law enforcement practices, a proposal that Patel publicly supported. The media captured this evolving dynamic with fascination. Headlines read, "From adversaries to allies, Patel and Crockett's bold attempt to bridge the divide," and "Can two political opponents rewrite the rules of justice?" Their joint efforts culminated in a historic press conference where Patel and Crockett announced a bipartisan task force to review FBI practices and recommend reforms. The announcement was met with cautious optimism from across the political spectrum. President Trump, observing these developments from the Oval Office, expressed his approval. "This is what leadership looks like," he remarked to his advisors. "If Kash and Jasmine can work together, it sends a powerful message to the country that we're serious about reform and unity." Yet the road ahead was anything but smooth. Hardliners on both sides viewed the alliance with suspicion. Some Democrats accused Crockett of compromising her principles, while some Republicans warned Patel against being soft on crime or conceding too much to liberal demands. As political tension escalated, so did the stakes for both Patel and Crockett. Their newfound partnership became a lightning rod for supporters and critics alike, drawing intense scrutiny. But both leaders stood firm, determined to show America that progress was possible, even in the most polarized times. The bipartisan task force announcement had sent shockwaves through Washington, but nothing could prepare Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett for the storm that followed. What began as a hopeful attempt at reform quickly morphed into a fierce political battleground. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for their careers, but for the very future of the FBI and American democracy. Within days, opposition from entrenched interests in both parties escalated. On the right, staunch conservatives accused Patel of capitulating to liberal pressure, branding him a traitor to the Trump administration's law and order agenda. On the left, progressive activists saw Crockett's cooperation as a betrayal, demanding she double down on resistance rather than compromise. The media frenzy intensified, with headlines framing the task force as either a courageous bridge to unity or a dangerous sellout. Late-night hosts and political commentators dissected every move, fueling the fire of polarization. Undeterred, Patel and Crockett pushed forward. They co-chaired the task force meetings, inviting experts, community leaders, and law enforcement officials to weigh in. The goal was clear: to recommend reforms that would restore public trust in the FBI while maintaining its effectiveness. The task force's work revealed uncomfortable truths, from instances of political bias within the Bureau to outdated practices undermining accountability. Recommendations included enhanced oversight mechanisms, transparent reporting, and stronger protections for whistleblowers. Both leaders knew these proposals risked angering powerful players in Washington. Amid this, Patel faced personal attacks accusing him of politicizing the FBI. Yet he remained steadfast. In a rare televised interview, he said, "My loyalty is to the Constitution and the American people, not to any party. Reform is not weakness, it's strength." Crockett, too, weathered criticism but used her platform to emphasize unity. "Justice cannot be a partisan weapon," she declared in a powerful speech on the House floor. "We owe it to every American to ensure that the FBI is impartial, transparent, and accountable." The crescendo came when Congress held a hearing on the task force's recommendations. Both Patel and Crockett testified together, their presence a powerful symbol of bipartisan resolve. The hearing was intense. Opposition forces unleashed a barrage of questions and accusations. But Patel's calm confidence and Crockett's passionate advocacy won respect even from skeptics. At a pivotal moment, Patel responded to a pointed question about the FBI's independence. "The Bureau's strength lies in its impartiality. That means no one, no president, no politician is above the law. This administration is committed to ensuring that truth prevails." The hearing closed with a call for action. Bipartisan bills incorporating many of the task force's reforms were introduced, signaling a potential breakthrough. In the weeks that followed, public opinion shifted. Americans, exhausted by partisan warfare, embraced the possibility of real reform. Patel and Crockett became unlikely icons of a new political era, one where dialogue and compromise could yield progress. President Donald Trump publicly praised the effort, reinforcing his support for Patel's leadership and the reforms. "This is how America moves forward together," he declared at a rally. The story of Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett's clash, comeback, and collaboration became part of the nation's political lore. A reminder that even in the most divided times, courage and conviction could forge a path toward unity and justice.